Okay.
Okay, welcome back. Today we continue the introduction, the Shemona Perakim, the 8 chapters of Maimonides Introduction to Pirkei Avot, the ethics of our fathers, right? We are now on the 5th chapter. It's not a long chapter. I'm sure we'll be able to learn the whole chapter today. All right, so the 5th chapter, after discussing the structure of the Nefesh and what's the sign of a healthy Nefesh, the different parts of the Nefesh, and how to heal a Nefesh, and what brings how do you call it, sickness to the Nefesh. All right, what is the proper way for us to guide our Nefesh? We saw certain parts of the Nefesh, right? Misvot can only apply to certain parts of the Nefesh. Other parts of the Nefesh, they're just like tools. Other parts of the Nefesh, for instance, man's metabolism, he barely has any control over it. It's all like background processes that man isn't even aware of. Parts of the Nefesh function best or function mostly when man's asleep and unconscious. All right, so בהשתמש האדם בכוחות הנפש לצד תכנית אחת, right? That's the subtitle for this chapter. Using or utilizing the forces, the functions of your nefesh towards one goal. צריך האדם שישעבד כוחות נפשו כולם לפי הדעת. So man has 5 parts of his nefesh. They should all be subjugated to the 5th section of the nefesh, man's intellect. Man's intellect should be what guides man's behavior, and so to correct the nefesh in accordance to it. As we have already said in the previous chapter, and man should always have one goal before him, והיא השגת השם יתברך כפי יכולת האדם לדעת אותה. Right? Understand, acquiring knowledge of God as best as man's ability. Man's intellect is limited. It could be a specific person's intellect is limited. Do your best to acquire as much knowledge of God as possible. This should be your goal in everything you do. וישים פעולותיו כולם, and all of your actions should be directed towards this goal. תנועותיו ומנוחותיו, right? Man's movements, his motion, everything he does. His rest, מנוחותיו, וכל דבריו, and everything he does and everything he says, מביאים לזו התכלית, should be in accordance with this objective. עד שלא יהיה בפעולותיו דבר מפועל ההבל, until none of his actions are heaven. Heaven means nonsense or don't bring you closer to this objective. It is סוני לומר, what do I mean by this? פועל שלא יביא לזאת התכלית. What is heaven? He says, any action that you do that is not for this objective, for this goal, is heaven. Everything you do should be in order to deepen and broaden your understanding of God and how he directs this world, how he manages this world, and getting closer to him. All right, for example, שישים הכוונה באכילתו ובשתייתו ומשגלו ושנתו וקיציאתו, right? So person's objective when he eats, when he drinks, right? When he has relations, when he goes to sleep, when he wakes up, ותנועתו ומנוחתו, when he rests and when he when he moves, בריאות physical health, והכוונה בבריאות גופו, right? But even that's not an objective on its own. That's a means to an end. And the goal of having a healthy body, שתמצא הנפש כלים בריאים ושלמות, so that when you're healthy, your nefesh has all of its tools, its tool sets are kept well, right? In order to acquire wisdom. Because when man is sick, when he has a headache, when he's not sleeping well, when he's deprived of sleep, he can't sit down and focus and study. If man, if man's healthy and then he loses have the patience to read, to listen. So everything we do, all our actions, our physical actions, should be directed towards maintaining and improving our physical health, right? This way we have clarity of mind and we're able to acquire this knowledge of God. Uknot ma'alot hamidot uma'alot השכליות עד שיגיע לתכלית ההיא. Right? So you maintain a healthy body, so you can maintain a healthy mind, a healthy nefesh, acquire knowledge of God, improve your midot, both your characteristic midot and your intellectual midot, right? Improve them as much as possible in order for you to acquire, to reach this goal of acquiring as much knowledge of God as possible. ועל זה ההיקש לא תהא אז כוונתו אל ההנאה לבד עד שיבחר מן המזון והמשתה הערב. Right? And so when you direct yourself in this way, you're not looking always for the tastiest food, right? Because the objective isn't having tasty food. Your objective is eating healthy, maintaining a healthy lifestyle. וכן בשאר הנהגות, וכן יכוון אל המועיל. You should always go towards what is beneficial to him. וכשיזדמן שיערב, יהיה. He says how great it would be, you make a good meal, a nice healthy meal, and it tastes good, that's great. But if it doesn't taste, it's not the best meal ever, doesn't live up to 5-star restaurant standards, that's also okay. And if it doesn't necessarily taste great, all right, that's not your objective. Right? And he should always direct himself towards maybe better tasting foods, but based on science, based on medicine, based on what foods are good for you. Make a healthy, tasty meal out of that. Or, for instance, someone, we said, part of the midot of the nefesh, right, is to have a balanced nefesh. There are some people who have no feeling and no cravings at all, and that's not healthy. And there are some people that have tremendous cravings, right, and that's also unhealthy. And if you see that you're leaning more towards not having any cravings, not enjoying any of these earthly goods that God gave us, then it's part of the refuah, the medication of your nefesh, to maybe have, a piece of cake, a piece of chocolate, to taste something good. Ya'ira, he will awaken his nefesh, ya'ira bimzonot hamtubanim ha'arevim, right, with good, well-seasoned, well-spiced foods that taste well. Shenefesh ha'adam it'ava lahem. Those foods that most people would crave. וכן מי שהתעוררה עליו מרה שחורה, and so to someone who is now sinking into a depression, יסירה בשמיעת הניגונים, right? So you should listen to music in order to cure his nefesh, במיני זמר, right? Listen to different songs, different poets, ובטיול הגנות, and walking in these nice gardens, and looking at nice architecture, right, and looking at nice art, all these things that expands man's mind, expands his mood, brings him into a better mood. And by doing so, he will remove this depression that is settling down in his mind. Right? And the objective of all of this is to maintain a healthy body. And what is the objective of maintaining a healthy body, being healthy, living a healthy lifestyle? To acquire wisdom. And so too, when man goes and conducts his business, he goes out, he purchases properties, he purchases assets or goods to sell. תהיה תכלית כוונתו בכיבוסו שיוציאו במעלות וישמצאהו לחושק גופו ולהמשיך מציאותו. So, what's the objective in acquiring wealth? Acquiring wealth is also in order to maintain a healthy lifestyle, in order to get higher quality food. Also, maybe to also acquire wisdom, hire good teachers, purchase books and libraries. So, there's nothing wrong with acquiring wealth. You work hard, but you have to have the proper objective in mind. עד שישיג וידע מהשם יתברך מה שאפשר לדעתו. Until he acquires as much knowledge from God that he can. I don't know who of you was in the class that we gave last year on Tisha B'Av. We gave a class on Iyov, right? Iyov, he had all the wealth in the world. He was healthy. He had he had many children, and then he lost everything. There was one thing Iyov was missing. At the beginning of the book, Iyov is described ish tam ve'yashar, right? He is perfect. He is straight. Yereh Elohim, fearful of God. V'sar mira, and he's always avoiding doing evil, bad deeds. But there's one thing that Iyov wasn't described as. He was never described as wise, as being a hacham, which is interesting considering that the book of Iyov is part of what we call Sifrut HaChokhmah, the literature on wisdom, along with Kohelet, Mishle, Shir HaShirim, right? But Iyov was working very, very hard to acquire tremendous amount of wealth, putting his objective in the wrong thing. Only at the end of the book, once he acquires knowledge of God, once he interacts with God, becomes a prophet, a Navi, he gets everything back, and he gets everything double. But there's an interesting pasuk over there. It says, "Vayasem Hashem kol Iyov lemishneh." It says, everything that Iyov had, God gave it to him lemishneh, which, according to the Peshat, seems that everything was doubled in quantity or in quality, depends what it was. However, I think at least the real meaning of le mishneh also means secondary. Once Iyov made acquiring wealth, maintaining a healthy lifestyle, and everything that he was doing before made that a secondary objective, where the primary objective is acquiring wisdom, then all of a sudden he enjoyed a much larger abundance from God. So the main objective is always ad sheyasig, to know, to acquire yidam Hashem yitbarach ma she'efshar lida'ato, whatever it is available to man to learn, to understand of God. ועל זה ההיקש יש למלאכת הרפואות מבוא גדול מאוד במעלות השכליות והמידות ובידיעת השם יתברך. And along these lines, right, we see that the study of medicine or the science of medicine has tremendous value in itself. One, in learning how to live a healthy lifestyle. Also, in it requires a lot of complex knowledge. So it also acquires, by studying medicine, you're also acquiring scientific knowledge, the hamidot, and learning how to correct your midot. That's also part of medicine. And ultimately acquiring knowledge of God. And there's therefore bringing you to the ultimate reward, which is olam haba, after acquiring this knowledge of God. ויהיה לימודה ובקשתה עבודה מן העבודות הגדולות. And studying science or medicine in itself is a form of worship. Just a reminder, Maimonides was a great physician. He was the personal physician to Salah ad-Din, the Sultan of Egypt. ולא תהיה אז כהריגה וכנגרות, and so it's not just like any other profession, like being sewing or being a carpenter. It has extra value to it because it helps you sustain your healthy lifestyle and acquire knowledge and wisdom. Right? Because through medicine we're able to properly evaluate what are the correct actions, the proper foods for us to do, the proper activities for us to do, what kind of workouts we should do. וישובו פעולות אנושיות מביאות אל המעלות האמיתיות. And so then, by understanding more science and medicine specifically, we'll know what to do in order to acquire these positive attributes. כי האדם שיבוא ויאכל מזון ערב אל החך, טוב הריח שנפש אדם מתאווה לו, והוא מזיק לו, right? Because when man comes and starts to eat, these great tasting foods that are unhealthy for you and brings you harm, physical harm, or sickness, ואפשר שיהיה סיבה לכל ייכשל, can even cause very bad disease. Maybe it'll cause what's it called? Sakeret. Forgot the word for sakeret. When you have too much sugar. What's the word? Who can help me?
Diabetes.
Diabetes. There you go. So if you eat a certain way, you can bring certain sickness and disease upon yourself. Only mita pitom. Or even, you have super fat foods all the time that cause a heart attack at the end of the day. It says this kind of behavior is comparable to that of the animals. Because this isn't the behavior of man as an intellectual man, a person of understanding. He says, however, this is the behavior of man as an animal, as part of the animal kingdom, as the next evolutionary step above the apes and primates, all right, but not as one evolutionary step below the malachim. There's a pasuk in Tehillim. It says, "Vatechasserehu me'at me'elohim." When you created man, you made him a little bit under Elohim. Elohim, we see, is also used to describe malachim, to describe nevi'im. It says, what does that mean? You made man a little bit under the malachim. It says, well, it's all a question of your perspective, right? Are you one stage above the animal kingdom, meaning you can justify any animalistic action based on, well, this is how it works in nature, right? Or is your perspective, I am one step below the malachim? Both, by the way, could be correct, right? We are an evolutionary step between the apes and the malachim. So the question is, what are you looking to, right? So are you going to behave like a man as an intellectual being, right? Striving to be like the Nevi'im, the Malachim, or are you going to be like man, the how do you call it, the biological being that's striving and justifying your actions based on how the animals behave? Nimshal kabehemot nidmu, right? Comparable to all the rest of the animals. ואומנם יהיה פועל אנושי שיוכל המועיל לבד, right? But when you eat what is good for you, when you direct yourself to the objective of eating healthy foods because it's healthy, that makes you enoshi, a human, meaning man as an intellectual being. And sometimes you won't eat something that's tasty, and maybe you'll even eat something that's not tasty because it's good for you. Right, in accordance to what is more beneficial to you. And this is acting in accordance to the dat, to your intellect, the fifth part of the nefesh. And in this kind of behavior is man differentiated from the rest of people who behave like animals or the rest of the animal kingdom. And so too when he has relations just because he wants to all the time, without keeping from when is it good for you, when is it bad for you, then he's behaving like an animal, and not as an intellectual man. And it's possible that man will behave always in accordance to what is beneficial to him, as we said. But he puts his ultimate objective is to maintain a healthy body and to avoid disease. And this doesn't make you any special kind of righteousness, right? There are people that they're obsessed with health. They're obsessed with fitness, right? That's their primary objective. And how is he different than someone who his ultimate goal is to just enjoy life? So this guy's ultimate goal is to enjoy health, right? That doesn't make him a higher person, a higher level than someone else. One person has one ta'ava, one person loves chocolate, and the other person loves vanilla. All right. So which is better? No, these are two different cravings that a man has. So he's saying also one person has a craving for tasty foods, the other one has a craving for fitness. Which is better? He says, as far as leading a lifestyle that's directing you towards acquiring wisdom and knowledge of God, they're both the same. He says, and none of them are actually doing it for the right purpose. But the proper way to lead your lifestyle, שישים תכלית, כל מה שיתעסק בו, בריאות גופו והמשך מציאותו על השלמות, right? That everything that you do should be towards this purpose of maintaining a healthy body, והמשך מציאותו על השלמות, and in order to prolong your life, in order to be healthy, כדי שישארו כלי כוחות נפשו, אשר הם איברי הגוף, the whole point of this should be always to maintain the tools of your nefesh, right? Which are your organs and your body parts and your healthy body, to always have them in good condition, but not for the sake of health in itself. ותתעסק נפשו מבלי מונע במעלות המידות. This way, there are no obstacles for the nefesh to acquire the midot that man needs to acquire, מעלות השכליות, and to acquire logic and proper ways of thinking to keep clarity of mind. וכן כל מה שילמדהו מן החוכמות ומן הדעות שישיג. And so too, when man, right, anything he learns from the wisdom and from the knowledge that from whatever classes he goes to, משהו מן הדרך לתכלית ההיא, they should all be directed towards this objective. Everything you study, you should say, how is this going to help me better understand God? אין בו דין ודברים, ומשאין בו תועלת בתכלית ההיא, and whatever doesn't bring you closer to this objective, כשאלת החשבון וספר החרוטים והתחבולות, right, like studying mathematics, studying geometry, doing crossword puzzles, ולהרבות משאלות ההנדסה ומשיכת המשקלים, right, and learning how different things fall into place, והרבה באלו, right? So if these things aren't directly connected to acquiring knowledge of God, right? But these two can be a means to an end. Right? You do crossword puzzles in order to sharpen your mind. You do all these logic problems. You play Sudoku, for instance, or I don't know, Minesweeper, whatever it is you like to play, right? In order to sharpen your mind, to see patterns better. And all this is in order to accustom your mind in the ways of logical thinking. This way, man is able to think logically, rationally, and use this logic to understand or differentiate, right, between right and wrong. More accurately, not right and wrong, but between emet and shekel, what's true and what's false. You can prove and substantiate an idea because you have a sharp mind and you're accustomed to thinking logically. Right? And these are pathways to better understand and substantiate knowledge of God. And so too, all the actions of man, anything that we do, like as we previously mentioned, walking in gardens, looking at art, listening to music, and צריך שידבר בהם אלא במה שיבין נפשו בו תועלת, right? You should always be discussing them, doing them for this one purpose of bringing more benefiting his nefesh, or yarhik hizek min nafsho, or to distance his nefesh from anything that could bring a harm to it, or migufo, from his body, or bechokma, or b'ma'ala, or in wisdom, or in characteristic, b'shevach ma'ala. Everything you speak about should be talking about how great acquiring a certain characteristic is, or me'uleh, or someone who is righteous, someone who has these great ma'alot, or leganot ginut, or meguneh, or to speak about how to stay away from certain characteristics which are bad, or certain people which embody these bad characteristics. Right? Because mentioning how evil certain people can be and certain societies can be, if the purpose of that is to keep people away from it, or to distance people, so that people stay away and don't learn from their actions, and don't behave like them. This is something that is very important, and this this type of speech of talking about evil people and evil societies and understanding why and how to stay away. This is a virtue. This is very important. See how God says, He says, as the actions of the Egyptians which you settled among them, do not behave like them. Vesipur Hasdomim, right, and the whole story of Sodom and Amorah, וכל מה שבא במקרא מסיפור גנות בעלי חסרונות וזכרם לגנאי, and we see all over Tanakh, we see stories about the evil doings of people like Balak, like Haman, right? ושבח הטובים והגדלתם, and we see how they glorify the tzaddikim and they elevate them like our Avot. אין הכוונה בו רק מה שזכרתי לך, right? The point of all of this is what I have told you, עד שימשכו בני אדם אחרי הדרכים הטובים האלה, so that man follow in the path of the righteous people, וידרחקו מדרכי הרעים ההם, and to stray from the path of the evil people, to stay away from their behavior. וכשישים האדם כוונתו אל זה העניין, and when man makes this his objective, יתבטל מפעולותיו ויחסר ממאמריו הרבה מאוד. He says all of a sudden, see that a lot of the things that he was doing and a lot of the things that he was saying, he's not going to be doing them as much anymore. Because a lot of the things that we do aren't in accordance with this objective. And as we said earlier, become pe'ulot heaven. Because someone who is always directed in this way, right? He's not going to all of a sudden have this craving to decorate the walls of his house in gold, or to make golden strands in his garments. Unless the whole point of this is in order to, again, restore his emotional state, restore his nefesh, and to keep it away from sickness. Right? In order that he has clarity of mind, right? He has a restful nefesh available to receiving wisdom from God. This is what the Chachamim say, Dirana ve'ishana umita musat l'talmidei Chachamim. Says the Talmidei Chachamim, right? The Chachamim, they have a nice apartment, it's neat, they have a nice wife, umita musat, and their room is always kept well, their bed is made. The Talmidei Chachamim, why? כי הנפש תלאה ותאחור המחשבה בהתמדת עיון הדברים האחורין. Right? Because when a person studies and he's delving deep into topics, he's going deep, right? A certain kind of laziness, a certain kind of we'll call it depression comes upon him. It's like sitting in front of your computer screen all day. It kind of takes a toll on your nefesh. כמו שילאה הגוף בעשותו המלאכות הכבדות עד שינוח מן נפש. Same way that a person who is stressing his body, working hard, his body becomes tired and aches until the person rests. So to the nefesh, right? When a person is working the nefesh, working his mind, his intellect, right? Studying hard, the nefesh also becomes tired. A tired nefesh is we'll call it like saddened and lazy and depressed. Ve'az yashuv lemizgo hashaveh, and after he rests, after a person rests, so his body gets restored, feels better, becomes stronger. כן, צריכה נפש גם כן התעסק במנוחת החושים, בעיון לפיתוחים ולעניינים הנאים. So to the nefesh, how does it rest? How does it regain its composition? How does it become strong again? It says menuchat hachushim, right? You rest your senses, you listen to good music, you look at art, you walk in the gardens, עד שתסור ממנו הלאות, until this laziness passes, or this depression passes. כמו שאמרו, as they say, the חכמים, כי הבו חנשי רבנן מגרסהו, הבו אמרי מילתא דבדיחותא. It says when the Chachamim, right, they once they're studying hard, right, Hanshe Rabbanan, they become weak. What does it mean? It's not their bodies are weak, their minds are becoming tired. Havu milta amre milta dibdihuta. They start, listening to comedy. They start joking around with each other to raise each other's spirits. ויחשוב על זה הצד, לא יהיו אלה רעות ולא מעשה הבל. Right, so if you're listening to comedy, right, in order to rest your mind after heavy, intense study, right, you're going for walks in the park because you're always deep focused in meditation, right, and now you need to bring some, lighten your spirit a bit, right, so when you do it like this is no longer heaven. This has a purpose to it. The purpose is restoring the healthy state of your nefesh, and the purpose of that is to come closer to God and acquire more wisdom. ברצוני לומר, עשיית הפיתוחים והציורים בבניינים ובכתרים ובבגדים. Right, so you said, person, if he's directing his mind always towards what's beneficial to him, then there's a lot of things he's not going to say, a lot of things he's not going to do. He's not going to have a craving for doing these tremendous architecture projects. He says, no, but if this is your purpose, so that you have, let's say you do some nice art, maybe doing this nice art, rest your nefesh, or it gives you something nice to look at after you've been in intense meditation. So this is a good thing. It's no longer heaven. Vidda, and you should know, shezot madrega in madrega elyona v'hamura, says that this level of guiding all of your actions, everything you do, you have no, without heaven, everything you do is for this one objective of acquiring, of perfecting your nefesh to acquire wisdom of God, is very, very high level. לא ישיגוה אלא מעט מזער ואחר הרגל גדול. Very, very few people actually reach this level. And even so, it's after tremendous training. They train their whole lives in behaving this way. וכשיזדמן מציאות האדם שזה עניינו, if you ever come across someone like this, איני אומר שהוא למטה מנביאים. I don't think his level is any less than that of the prophets. רצוני לומר שישמש כוחות נפשו כולם וישים תכניתם, right, that he guides all of his nefesh, and his one primary goal, ידיעת השם יתברך לבד, ולא יעשה מעשה קטן וגדול, and he's not going to do no great endeavor, no little one, ולא ידבר דבר, and he's not going to say anything, אלא שהפועל ההוא, unless it's for this purpose, או הדבר ההוא מביא למעלה, או למה שמביא אל מעלה, right, in order to acquire some new virtue in the nefesh, acquire some new understanding, והוא יחשוב ויסתכל בכל פועל ותנועה, and everything he does and everything he says, every action he takes, he's going to assess אם יביא לתכלית ההיא או לא יביא, right? Is it going to bring me closer to God or not? ואז יעשה, and only then, once he confirms that what he's doing now is the time to listen to music, because if I listen to music now, it's going to bring me closer to God, because this is what my nefesh needs now, right? This is the level of the Nevi'im, and in the Moreh, in the guide, the Rambam says this is the level of the Avot, who everything they did, all the actions they did it kind of like in the autopilot, where they were just doing the actions that they needed to do to sustain themselves, right, with their bodies, while their mind was always focused on God. וזהו אשר ביקש ממנו יתברך שנתכוון אליו. And this is what God wants us to strive for. באומרו, when he says, ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבביך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. Right, in the Shema we say, and God commands us, and you should love God בכל לבביך, with all your heart, ובכל נפשך, with your entire nefesh, ובכל מאודיך, like with everything you got. What does that mean? בכל נפשך, רצה לומר, בכל חלקי נפשך. All the functions, all the parts of your nefesh should be guided towards this mitzvah of ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, loving God. And if you remember from our previous course, we had a class, what is the mitzvah of loving God? The mitzvah of loving God is to study and understand Him on a deeper and deeper level. Because only through understanding are you able to love something. שתעשה תכלית, כל חלק ממנה תכלית אחת. You should make one objective for all the parts, the functions of your nefesh, and that is לאהבת השם יתברך, loving God. וכבר הזהיר הנביא, we have explained that loving God is acquiring more knowledge of God. וכבר הזהיר הנביא, עליו השלום, על זה גם כן ואמר, and so we see, like refers to here Shlomo HaMelech as the Navi, that he already warned us about this. He already commanded us, Bechol derachecha da'ehu. In all your ways, in all your actions, da'ehu, know God. Meaning, all your actions, everything you do, your behavior, everything you say, should lead to this one objective of acquiring more knowledge and wisdom of God. ופירשו החכמים, זיכרונם לברכה, and the חכמים, they explained this pasuk as afinu lidvar avera, right? Even for, what does that mean? Bechol derachecha da'ehu, says even when you're doing an avera, it should lead to this one objective. What does that mean? ורצוני לומר, שתשים לפועל תכלית והיא האמת, that everything you do should be for this one objective, which is acquiring truth, knowing the truth. Even though, right, in a different circumstances, maybe this could be kind of like an avera, meaning, let's say, like eating an unhealthy food that tastes very good, right, could be kind of like an avera. It's a discretion against, it's a transgression against your nefesh. However, under certain circumstances, that is exactly what your nefesh needs in order to rest, in order to pass its laziness and depression, right? To uplift your spirit, right? In order to restore your clarity of mind, to study and know God better. וכבר כללו החכמים זיכרונם לברכה, זה העניין כולו בקצרה. And the Chachamim, we see they already coined the term, a very precise and concise term, במילot mu'atot, with few words, morot al ze ha'inyan, right, that guide us towards this idea, hora'ah shenema me'od, right? So he's saying, the Chachamim, they have this tremendous wisdom in a few words. Sometimes they say a few words to describe everything we've been discussing for the past hour in this chapter. Ad she'ata tivhana milot, ech sifru ze ha'inyan ha'gadol ha'asum kulo. How did they explain all of this in just a few words? Asher chibru bo chiburim velo yishlimu. Says that we see that some philosophers, they write entire books on this topic, right? But the Chachamim come with this one phrase. You should know that this was said in the spirit of God. God inspired them with these words. This is what they say. And everything you do, all your actions, you, B'Shem Shamayim, should be directed to God, to the Shamayim, to the heavens. וזהו העניין אשר ביארנוהו בזה הפרק, right? And this is what we came to explain in this chapter. וזהו שיעור מה שראינוהו ראוי לזכרו הנה לפי זאת ההקדמה. And this is the lesson that is important as the 5th chapter of the Shemona Perakim, the introduction to the ethics of the father, of our fathers, right? To always guide all of the functions of your nefesh, all of your actions and all of your behaviors. And since we say the nefesh is unified, the nefesh is one, anything good you do for the nefesh, any action you do, anything you study brings health to your entire nefesh. The objective of that is to bring you always closer and closer to God, to acquiring his wisdom and becoming a better person. And that is the 5th chapter of the Shemona Perakim. Any questions, anybody? Okay, see everything was crystal clear? Yes, please.
I have a question. How explain when when a person do an evil thing, very evil, to kill somebody? What happened with the neshama? Is getting out for the moment or what? I don't know if you understand what I mean. Because we have free will, but the example is the horrible things about these people, Hamas.
So there are certain.
What happened with the neshama in this moment?
So there are certain actions that our nefesh can't bear, and once you do it, you get karet, you get cut off from olam haba. Now, again, I don't want to confuse. There's 2 different terms here. There's the nefesh and the neshama. We said v'kol shem v'shem ilmad me'inyano. The neshama, what we call neshama, is it's not part of the nefesh. It's accessed by the intellectual part of the nefesh. We say we wake up in the morning, we say Elohai, right? Our God, our Master. Neshama shenatata bi tehorahi, right? The neshama that you put in me is pure. The neshama, by the way, can never be affected. What you could do is you can disconnect yourself from the neshama. So certain actions that a person does will disconnect him from the neshama, and then he'll be cut off from the eternal life. He will be cut off from life itself. Of course, there's still an option to do teshuvah and reconnect with this neshama. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you to that.
Anyone else? Okay, you said that. There's no more questions. We'll end here. And we'll continue with the 6th chapter, which is it's a relatively short chapter, and maybe the 7th chapter too next week. We'll see what we can accomplish.